Well, there are 5 candidates who are running for the mayor of St. Paul. Of those, three have engaged in some serious fundraising. That includes the incumbent Mayor Melvin Carter, who will be guest here next week, also biophysicist Chen, and State Representative Kaohly Her. Joining me right now is State Representative Kaohly Vang Her. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Let me ask you, you actually were the policy director for Mayor Carter for almost 4 years in his first term. Aren't you running against the administration that you helped establish?
Yeah, so thank you for asking the question. Truthfully, I don't look at this race as running against Melvin or this administration. I'm somebody who did have a front row look at how city government is run, and that I think with my background and my lived experience, I bring a really different perspective into how I do this work. And so I want to be able to bring our city into this next phase of where it could be, because we have work that needs to be done.
Of course, everyone is concerned about crime, and you've made that an issue in the race. I think Mayor Carter has also talked about it. Crime is actually down in St. Paul. What would you like to focus on? I mean, it seems like there is progress, although it's hard when something happens in your neighborhood, your home. It doesn't feel that way. But yeah. What would you like to do that you think could even bring it down further?
Yeah, and I think that when we look at public safety, it's not just crime, right? I think that it is important for us to remember in the construct of how we talk about public safety, it encompasses a lot of different things. Whether it is addressing the opioid and fentanyl crisis that's been happening, especially being trafficked up and down University Avenue and the light rail, or it is that our EMS services in St. Paul, all of our emergency services come from our fire. And so really looking at how to position our city well to weather through these next probably very tumultuous 3 years under this federal administration and the constant threat of funding cuts and what that means to keep our community safe.
And in terms of crime specifically, what would you do?
So again, like I said, I'm focusing on public safety. When people say that they don't feel safe, it has to do with many, many different things within our city. So what I will say is that, like, when we think about our families and our students, right, where kiddos can't get inside of libraries because people are overdosed in front of it. When we're closing our libraries on Sundays and after 2 p.m. they can't get in. Or people are trying to get up and down using the light rail and they're not able to because there are people who are who need help, right? And so like that to me are issues, are public safeties, they're just important to address. And so I am working with different groups on who we would bring to the table to address this issue.
You say that St. Paul is basically stalled in terms of development, that areas like the Midway, also downtown are just going nowhere. Yeah. Obviously the Cub Foods in Midway closed, and that is going to close, and that's a big, big deal for a lot of people. What would you have done that the Mayor Carter didn't do in order to try and keep it closed? It seemed like Cub was going to close it no matter what.
Yeah, so I will say that, we can look back, and I think, we can, hindsight is always 20/20 vision. I mean, I'm a very collaborative person, and I am actually very proactive, and so I don't wait years before I address an issue with people. I think that that's the core difference between how I operate and maybe how current leadership is at the city now. I think that it's more about the fact is that our environment in our city is not conducive for people to run their businesses and to thrive in St. Paul, and that I bring a different perspective as to how I would do that. We have to make sure that our city is open for business, and when people are here and trying to navigate difficult situations, that we're responsive, and that when they are calling into City Hall and asking for help, that we actually are able to track the things that are happening and that we respond accordingly to people. And then for us to make sure that when someone does want to invest in our city, that we have a process that is transparent and that we actually roll out the red carpet like other surrounding cities do when somebody wants to open up a business.
All right, and do you think that's not the case in St. Paul, that it's too hard to open a business in St. Paul?
So we knocked a lot of doors, and that is absolutely what we are hearing, and that's consistent with what I saw when I was there as well.
Okay, well, Representative Her, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we're going to be following this race.
Thank you.
All right, well, the incumbent Mayor Melvin Carter will be a guest on this show next week at 10:30 a.m.